and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Tuesday, June 24th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, got a new segment for you guys. SBD, start, bench, or drop. It wasn't the best night for pitching, and it wasn't the best night for injuries either. And unfortunately, that is where we have to start because we have some breaking news on Corbin Carroll, who will be placed on the IL on Tuesday because he was diagnosed with a chip fracture in his left wrist. It is currently unclear how long he'll be out or whether they are considering surgery. But Chris, I know you have looked into some other players or player that has dealt with this injury. What did you learn about a chip fracture in the wrist?
Yeah, the only other hitter I was able to find who had a chip fracture in their wrist was Aaron Judge in 2018. That does not mean there have not been other ones. I'm certain there have been. What a chip fracture means, if my extremely limited understanding of human anatomy is correct, is the part of the bone where like a tendon or ligament attaches breaks off is what a chip fracture is. And so maybe that type of injury is just a lot more rare, or maybe when other guys suffer wrist fractures, they just don't specify what it is because every team's different in terms of how they report injuries. But Aaron Judge in 2018 missed 49 games with a chip fracture in his wrist. He returned in like mid-September, only had like 15 games left in the season. He was really bad after he came back. Hard to say if that's because of it or if after a couple of weeks he would have been fine. I think generally speaking, we probably would assume there's a little bit of a recovery period when a player is cleared to come back from something like a wrist fracture. So that doesn't necessarily mean that Corbin Carroll will be terrible when he comes back or that he'll miss the exact same amount of time. But I would guess, just based on how long it takes most wrist fractures to heal, the average is right around 60 days for wrist fractures to return, and the median is around 50. So that was right around what Aaron Judge missed. I think we're talking about August, unfortunately. That's not a guarantee. That the team hasn't said anything. There's been no reporting to indicate that. That's just my sense of what we're likely looking at.
Yeah, and this is a massive loss for fantasy, massive loss for the D-backs who were, trying to stay afloat here. They already lost Corbin Burns earlier this season. Now they lose Corbin Carroll as well.
Down to Corbins.
Yeah, 20 homers.
Hate to see it.
20 homers.
We got to get the Rangers on the call.
Massive counting stats here for Carroll this season. Career highs in OPS, WRC plus. I mean, really took a big step forward. He was the 12th best hitter in head-to-head points leagues. He was the 19th overall player in Roto. So big loss here with Corbin Carroll going down. Jake McCarthy is set to be recalled by the D-backs, and in 49 games at AAA, he was hitting .314 with 12 steals. So deeper league name if you're looking for speed. He had 25 steals last season, sure. But how about some names in shallower leagues? Corbin Carroll replacements. Alec Burleson is up to 78%. He hit another home run here on Monday. Cam Smith has been hitting well. Addison Barger, we've been talking about for a while. Joe Adele, I believe, leads all of baseball in home runs in the month of June. And we know that Jorickson Profar is expected back July 2nd. So, Scott, some pretty good names here. How are you ranking this group of Corbin Carroll replacements?
Well, the bad news is you're not going to find a player who's going to do for you everything Corbin Carroll would do. One that you didn't mention that, if his best case scenario comes together, and it's been a couple years since we've seen his best case scenario, but Josh Lowe of the Rays, at least from a 5x5 perspective, he might be able to deliver in a best case scenario 80% of what you got from Corbin Carroll. So that's another name to consider. He is 71% rostered on CBS, which is why you didn't mention him, but that's less than Cam Smith. So worth bringing up also. I would say the two that most excite me here are Addison Barger, because I think he's the most under-rostered hitter in general. He's not going to provide any speed, which was probably the biggest thing you were getting from Corbin Carroll, but the power is legit, and he's playing more regularly for the Blue Jays. And I think we're starting to see him live up to those very red bars on his StatCast page. So that would be the top one. But then also Jurickson Profar, who's going to be back in about a week. And he recently had a 2-homer game on his rehab assignment at AAA. We obviously don't know how it's going to go for him coming back from this PED suspension. Historically, players who have PED suspensions, they come back and they're basically the same player for the majority of them.
The problem is we don't really know who Jurickson Profar is.
Right. There's more reason to be suspicious in Jurickson Profar's case since he had this out of nowhere breakthrough last year. I'm not denying that, though there have been other reasons cited for it. I think the performance of AAA, if you're looking for reason to be encouraged, it's there. I mean, the Braves obviously still have confidence. They're talking about batting him second right when he gets back behind Ronald Acuña. And so that should help bolster Profar's value. I think it's worth a shot, as good as he was last year. If you're trying, look, he was a top 20 outfielder in fantasy last year. Profar, I think even higher than that in points leagues. So if he is that guy, that's kind of a godsend. If you lost Corbin Carroll, probably worth taking a shot on him.
Yeah, I think Profar should be 100% rostered by next week because he'll be eligible to return on Wednesday. I don't what day of the week is the second? So Wednesday, yeah. Unless they get a rain out between now and then, I guess. But he's the only one of these that I think I feel confident saying should be 100% rostered. I can see it with Barger. The problem with him and Josh Lowe is they're both not quite everyday players. They're probably like 85% at this point. But I think Lowe, since he came back from the injury, has started 5 of 9 games against lefties, and Barger in the month of June, when he's turned it on, I think it's 4 out of 7. So more often than not. But like there was a stretch last week where they had 2 lefties in a row, and I think 3 out of 4 games, and he sat 2 of those. So there's just a little bit there with Barger and Lowe as far as not playing every day. Cam Smith has a ton of upside. Ceddanne Rafaela is 63% rostered. He's been hot. In June, he's got 5 homers and like a 944 OPS. And then I
think people
don't have him
on Kyle Stowers a little early. His
playing time has fallen off a lot, though.
Has he been playing less?
Yeah.
I know the production. I know he's had a bad June. But
I didn't look directly into it, but I assumed it was mostly just lefties on the schedule. But he was playing against lefties before, and that's come down now.
He hasn't been forcing his way in lately.
They've faced a lot of lefties lately, and he's sat against about half the lefties.
And then I will add one more name who's right around 50% rostered. Actually, I have 2 more names that I'm sure we're going to mention later in the podcast, but I'll just bring them up now. Austin Hayes is expected to be back this weekend. He's 48% rostered. He's been awesome whenever he's played this year. He's just missed a lot of time. And then Chandler Simpson is expected to be promoted on Tuesday. He's 47% rostered. I still don't know if he's going to play every day, if they're going to trust him with the defense, especially. I will say with Mangum healthy, he wasn't when Simpson got called up the first time. I think Simpson's going to play a lot more left field than center field, and that's probably a little easier to swallow, especially when the alternative is Christopher Morel, who's also terrible defensively.
Mm-hmm. And Cameron Misner got sent down.
Yeah.
So Mangum is around, but Misner isn't.
Yeah. So
I would look like Kevin Cash seemed to relish having that spark plug in the lineup when Chandler was up before. So I think if the front office is leaving it up to the manager, I think Chandler's going to play a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So we just threw a lot of names out there. I guess, Scott, your top 2 or top 3 was like Josh Lowe in category leagues, Barger and Profar. Chris, who are just your top 2 or 3?
I agree. I'll throw Cam Smith in there just as a more speculative upside play, just because I think if everything comes together, he has the best chance of potentially replacing a lot of what you lost with Corbin Carroll, but it's also super speculative. I think he's 2 for 16 since his 7 hits in 2 games stretch.
Mm-hmm. And then some names in deeper 5 outfielder leagues. Again, this is pretty deep stuff here, but Mickey Moniak, Tyler Freeman of the Rockies, who's been hitting well lately, Wencel Perez of the Tigers, and then Luke Raley and Dominic Canzone, both of the Mariners, both homered here on Monday. And the data for both guys under the hood actually looks pretty good. So some deep league names there for you if you lost Corbin Carroll. And some buy low trade targets I'll throw out. Mike Trout. I know people are like done with Brian Reynolds, but the data still looks good. And Jackson Merrill has just kind of had a weird season where he's been hurt and, there's not a lot of power and speed, but he's still hitting the ball hard and the batting average is good. So, 3 names I think you can try and trade for as a replacement there.
Somebody I think you could buy like low, bottom rung of the ladder low on is Michael Harris.
Yeah, his underlying data is really bad, but I agree. He seems like a pretty clear buy low candidate just because he's 24 years old. Guys usually don't lose it like this, even though the underlying data is really bad. I've got a piece coming out tomorrow about him and a couple other buy low candidates or second half breakouts, I think is the way I'm framing it. Cause we got to, put a different tag on there or whatever. And he's kind of a tepid, like buy low just because it can't be this bad. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like I feel like you would be doing from the perspective of the person who has Michael Harrison. Yeah, they would feel like you're doing them a favor, taking him off their hands, and you don't have to start him right away necessarily. But he's clearly going through something right now. It's hard to fake it 3 years in a row at the start of your career, and he is only 24, as you're saying, so he's still in the infancy of his career. And whatever he's going through, I think he'll eventually get past it. Can't guarantee it'll be this year. Yeah. It might be next year. But it could be this year. And then you'll have 5 category production right there.
Can I know we want to move on, but can I give 2 more names?
Sure.
Parker Meadows is 33% rostered. He has a 350 xWOBA. His actual numbers are much worse, but I think much better days are coming for Parker Meadows. I think he is under rostered. And here's one I noticed. Chase DeLauder is healthy. He has played, I think, 21 games at AAA. He is, as he always does, raking. And the Guardians have the second lowest WOBA from their right fielders in the entire league. I feel like they've got to just call him up because he's healthy and hitting and just see what happens. He's one of the more talented hitting prospects in baseball. He's just missed, I think he's played like 70 games since being drafted 3 or 4 years ago. It's been really bad for injuries, but that's a name in deeper leagues to know.
It's kind of the way we talk about pitching prospects, right? Like just get those
you got the bullets now.
Yeah, get those bullets up and use them in the majors while you can. It's, if DeLauder's healthy, while those feet are still attached, let's get him up and hopefully he can make some noise there with the Guardians. So pretty interesting name there as well for deeper leagues. Let's take our first break. When we return, we'll finally get into the players of the night. We'll do that right after this.
Here we go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays.
He's got his receiver touchdown.
Filled with rematches.
Oh, the play of the year.
And rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals.
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns. And an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball. Today, let's get into the players of the night.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Forgot to change it. So there we go. 2 days in a row with Susan, and we will start with Chris, player of the night.
All right. Eduardo Rodriguez. Here's a fun trivia assignment that you're at, trivia question. I don't know, that you can stump and dazzle all of your friends with. Here's the full list of pitchers with more 10 strikeout games than Eduardo Rodriguez this season after he struck out 10 White Sox on Monday. Logan Webb, Tarek Skubal, Chris Sale, Cole Reagans, and Jesus Luzardo. Okay, all right, 2 of them are hurt. Jesus Luzardo's been iffy. Those are some really good pitchers. And then there is Eduardo Rodriguez with 3, tied with Garrett Crochet and Spencer Schwellenbach. Eduardo Rodriguez is clearly the worst of those 7 names I just mentioned. But I don't think he's as bad as he's pitched this year. The strikeouts have been inconsistent but solid. He kind of has a little bit of that kitchen sink thing where none of his pitches are dominant, but they're all decent swing and miss pitches. So his overall whiff rate's pretty good. His xERA entering this start was 3.92. I think Eduardo Rodriguez can still be a useful pitcher, and he's pitching really well right now. 22 strikeouts to 6 walks in 22 innings in the month of June, 2.05 ERA. I'm surprised he's 62% rostered, but I actually think that could be a little low. It's a 2-start week, so that's probably why he got a little boost this week, I guess.
And he was a sleeper pitcher for me. Actually, one of the few 2-start sleepers who came through and didn't do the opposite. Most of them were pretty terrible today. So sorry for that. Eduardo Rodriguez and Matthew Liberatore coming through, though. Matthew Liberatore against the Cubs. What?
Cubs offense has been kind of bad lately.
Yeah. Just getting back to Erod for a second here. I agree that I feel like he has pitched to deserving better results. A 5.40 ERA, a 1.58 whip this season, but all the underlying ERA estimators are in the high 3s. So I feel like he probably should be somewhere around that 10K per 9 this season, 62% rostered. So great matchups this week. Hopefully it works out. Maybe he can build off of this for as long as he's healthy. But I do think that he has deserved some better numbers this season. That is Eduardo Rodriguez.
Who's cold on the Cubs? I'm trying to think, how could their offense be bad?
So they're 17th in WOBA in the month of July entering this game, which is actually
June.
In June, yes.
I feel like Tucker,
which is actually the same as the Yankees, and that's been treated like a world historical crisis. So
maybe up there in New York, I don't know. Haven't heard much about that for the Yankees. That's funny though, because I feel like Seiya Suzuki just had a big game. Crow Armstrong obviously hasn't slowed down. I think I saw Kyle Tucker did something big. That's just
Matt Shaw, Carson Kelly, Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson, Seiya Suzuki. They all have WOBAs below 300.
I would still.
No, I agree, but they just have not been great lately.
Generally, feel great about starting a pitcher against the Cubs.
All right, Scott, let's go over to you for your player of the night.
My player of the night is Trevor Rogers. 8 shutout innings against the Rangers. And this was his 3rd major league start this year. 2 of them have been great. Back on May 24th, he had 6 1/3 shutout innings against the Orioles. The one in between, which was June 18th, not so great. He got hit pretty hard. And his ERA was over 5 during his time in the minors, too. So I'm not looking to pick up Trevor Rogers after this start. But some people might be, given that he just threw 8 shutout innings. Might be, and that's a name. I recognize that name, Trevor Rogers. I would caution against it. The one thing I will say in his favor is his average fastball velocity this year has been up. It's been up to where it was in 2023 when he was at least serviceable for fantasy. There was a big drop for Trevor Rogers last year, and it made him kind of useless for fantasy. It's back to a respectable level. So if he were to find success, I think that would be a big reason why. But I think in the long run, the good starts will be overshadowed by the bad ones like Trevor Rogers had last time out.
Yeah, completely agree there as well. As good as the start was, only 8 whiffs, 12 hard hits in this game too. So nice result here. It also was against the Rangers lineup that did not have Corey Seager in it.
And it was basically the same thing in his good start against the Red Sox, which is a tougher matchup. I think they're the 3rd best offense against lefties, but I think it was also 8 whiffs and like 92 mile per hour average exit velocity in that one as well. So I think it is a big deal for both Trevor Rogers and the Baltimore Orioles that he looks like a competent major league pitcher, because that has not been true for a long time. And competent major league pitchers have good starts all the time. I don't think he's someone really worth chasing in most leagues. I think it's just a matchup play. And tonight it was, hey, didn't you used to be Trevor Rogers versus, hey, didn't you used to be the Texas Rangers, you know?
Yeah. Gosh, this Rangers lineup thing is it's so weird. It's just been going on for so long now, dating back to last season. But we will talk a little bit about Corey Seager later on as well. My players of the night, the Cardinals, bombs away for the Cardinals here. We got a bunch of home runs in this game, opposing Ben Brown, who was not very good. But Brendan Donovan, 1 for 4 with his 5th home run, and has been having a pretty rough June. I know he's been dealing with a sprained toe this month, so perhaps that has contributed there. Alec Burleson, who I mentioned earlier, 1 for 4 with his 9th home run, got off to a slow start. But since the beginning of May, Burleson, 336 batting average, all 9 of his homers, and an OPS over 950. So I do like him. He's all the way up to 78% rostered. He's performed well against lefties this season. I think he's a name that makes sense in points leagues. He doesn't strike out very much. So I do like Alec Burleson quite a bit. Lars Nootbaar, 1 for 4 with his 10th home run, trying to get back on track here. Has 2 home runs in his past 5 games, down to 66% rostered. Do you guys agree with that? Should that number continue to fall here for Nootbaar, who has just had an abysmal June?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. It wouldn't surprise me if he got hot again and we're picking him back up, but 66%, I think there's enough interchangeability in that range of the outfield rankings. Obviously, that doesn't include 5 outfielder leagues. That's just the 3 outfielder leagues where Nootbaar's been dropped and you've swapped him out for a hotter hand like Burleson, or maybe Addison Barger, who actually is rostered less than that still. Yeah, I can't really fault anyone for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that was my next question. Would you swap him out for his teammate Burleson? But sounds like you would.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree. Well, let me see. This is me looking at last year's point per game average. What does this year's look like for Burleson? Because you mentioned the strikeout rate is low. Strikeout rate's always been low for Burleson, but the walk rate is also so low. And since he's not providing many homers, providing many stolen bases, it still makes for a pretty modest point production. So it's 2.42 points per game. It's probably been better than that recently. He's been playing more regularly. You mentioned the numbers are great against left-handed pitchers, but I think it kind of puts Burleson permanently on the fringes in 3 outfielder points leagues. Roto leagues, I think the potential impact he could have in batting average, I actually like him a little more there.
Last 28 days for Burleson, 3.2 fantasy points per game. So he's hot. So
yeah, he's hot for sure.
Yeah. One more name here, Nolan Gorman, 1 for 4 with his 5th home run, and is set to play to get more playing time with Ivan Herrera hurt, who was actually mostly DHing for the Cardinals there. Don't need to add Gorman, but a name to watch. Still think he has some power potential here if he can, get more of that playing time and take advantage of it. Before we move on, I did just want to highlight and give a shout out once again. I mean, Cal Raleigh did it again. Big dumper, 2 for 5 with his 32nd home run. He has homered in 4 straight games. He has 6 home runs in his past 6 and is now up to 32 homers, 68 RBI, and 9 steals on June 24th.
That's like a 68 homer pace too, right?
He is.
I'm not exaggerating. It was 66 as of yesterday.
Yeah, no, Aaron Judge's son is going to have to start following him around in August, September in case he breaks that record. It's a little Roger Maris joke. Cal Raleigh has 54 home runs over the last calendar year.
It's pretty good.
That's pretty good. I was trying. I'm trying to write up a Cal Raleigh, just putting him in historical context piece, and it's I think if what he's done over the last calendar year is, I think, comparable to some of the very best seasons we've ever seen from a catcher. It's probably not the best, although with his defense, it's going to be pretty good.
It was Platinum Glove winner. Aaron Judge may have competition for MVP when all's said and done. I do think Cal Raleigh's homer pace is going to slow. There's never been a 50 homer catcher before, so to think there's going to be a 60 homer catcher. I would bet on Raleigh being the first 50 homer catcher at this point, but not by much.
Mm-hmm. All right, before we get to the news and notes, just a reminder that you can listen to FBT and FBT Express on Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, scan that QR code. That will bring you right to the FBT Spotify feed. And if you are listening on Spotify, leave a comment on this episode. Who is the top Corbin Carroll replacement right now? Big thanks to those watching live. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe on YouTube as well. Let's get into the news and notes. And Kenley Jansen entered in a non-save situation here on Monday, threw 4 pitches and left with injury. His cutter velocity was down 3 miles per hour, which sounds pretty scary. And then after the game, we learned that he had shoulder cramping and said that he should be fine. But
I saw pectoral, but cramping, I think maybe is the key word there either way. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
If something were to happen, do you guys have a guess as to who would be next up for the Angels?
I think it's got to be Reed Detmers.
Yeah, we were talking about this because it just happened before we went live. And like, man, who else is good in their bullpen? Who's been pitching the 8th inning? It has been Detmers. And while Detmers' overall numbers are unimpressive, he entered today in his last 17 starts with a .50 ERA and 27 strikeouts in 18 innings. That's 13.5 K per 9. He's been really impressive lately. And I think probably there's a case he should, with those numbers like that, there's a case he should be just closing over Kenley Jansen regardless.
I think there's a pretty good chance that Kenley gets dealt by the deadline.
Yes.
And
right. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, no, that I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
they're never going to have Kenley Jansen out there not closing.
No. I'm just saying in a world where you don't have to weigh those implications, like would Reed Detmers make a more effective closer than Jansen? And look, I'm not saying he would, but the way he's performed lately is certainly closer caliber.
All right, Brian Snitker said that while the team fully anticipates Chris Sale to pitch again this season, they won't have a timetable until they see how Sale's left rib cage heals. Shota Imanaga will rejoin the Cubs this Thursday to face the Cardinals. He got up to 72 pitches in his final rehab outing. The Rays are expected to recall Chandler Simpson, which we mentioned earlier, from AAA on Tuesday. In 35 games with the Rays earlier this season, he was hitting .285 with 19 steals. In 16 games since getting sent down, he hit .366 with 11 steals. So more of the same. Great batting average and lots of steals. 47% rostered for Simpson. Do you guys think he's a must-add in all formats, or is it only category leagues?
Only categories leagues for now. He's got to play every day, and I'm not sure he's going to right away. I think there's a non-zero chance he's like a glorified Jared Dyson. I don't think that's the likeliest outcome, but like they already sent him down, and kept a bunch of guys who are not necessarily more talented than him around. So I think he's got to hit better than he did, even though we loved what he was doing. It was a .285 batting average, but only a .315 OBP and no power. And he was terrible defensively. So I think he's got to probably hit a little better, and I think he can. His XBA, I think, was .305. And he's got to be passable defensively. It wouldn't take much for him to be better than Christopher Morel, but I think he needs to get there first.
I do kind of wonder. I don't think there's been any reporting about this, and maybe I'm just totally off base. But I mentioned Kevin Cash was playing him basically every day and seemed to like having him in the lineup. And I wonder if there was a disconnect between the front office and the dugout there. The front office just, pure looking at the pure number crunching aspect of Simpson and the dugout looking more at like the aesthetic aspect and just kind of the amount of chaos he creates and having a greater appreciation for what he does, which is why I think Simpson's going to play basically every day, because that is ultimately Kevin Cash's call. And I'll point out, when you steal bases at the clip he was, 19 in 35 games, that adds up to a lot of fantasy points. Chandler Simpson averaged 2.89 fantasy points in his previous stint in the majors, which is what Jung-Hoo Lee has averaged this year. It's what Brandon Nimmo has averaged this year. So I'm not saying he needs to be picked up in points leagues. I just don't think there's any rush to do that. But if Simpson comes back and is exactly who he was before, he will eventually be worth picking up in points leagues.
The Rays, honestly, they've got some clutter. They got like 6 guys who should probably either be playing first base or DH that they're all trying to find playing time for. And I do include Chandler Simpson in that for now, at least. Not first base, but maybe DH. So I think they got to make some trades at some point and clear some of this stuff up.
It is kind of crazy to think about how good the Rays have been and how much they've been scoring. And now they're adding another dynamic piece who can just wreak havoc on the base pads. So along with them hitting home runs, now they're gaining a lot more speed here with Chandler Simpson. Tyler Glass now tossed 2 scoreless innings in his rehab start at AAA on Sunday. He got up to 48 pitches, so I have to imagine at least a couple more rehab starts are coming. Eugenio Suarez left after getting hit by a pitch in his right hand, and thankfully x-rays came back negative. Josh Naylor was removed due to right shoulder discomfort. He'll be reevaluated on Tuesday. The D-backs are just going through it right now. I mean, Carroll, Corbin Burns went down. We got Suarez and Naylor hurt here, so it's just, gosh. Hope those guys are all right. Keibert Ruiz left Monday night after getting struck by a foul ball in the dugout. Apparently, he had to go to the hospital, too. So hope everything's all right with him. Jordan Westberg has missed 2 straight with a sprained left index finger, but could return as soon as Tuesday. Matthew Boyd has been cleared to make his next start Wednesday. He was removed from his last outing after being hit by a comebacker in his left shoulder. Austin Hayes will begin a rehab assignment at AA Tuesday and could return this weekend. He's 48% rostered, has performed great when healthy this season. So another outfield option there in Austin Hayes. Brandon Woodruff completed a 60-pitch simulated game Monday and will go on a rehab assignment later this week. He's still 84% rostered. The hope will not die. I mean, to see Brandon Woodruff is still 84% rostered, it blew my mind. But I think it's the name value. People are still holding on. So.
I did not realize 84% of CBS Sports leagues had unlimited IL spots. Because I don't know. I don't want to write it off. I'm rooting for him. I hope I'm wrong. My expectations for him are not that different than my expectations for Clayton Kershaw when he was coming back, and I think they're probably going to pitch pretty similar.
Even if, and I know you were joking, but even if there were unlimited IL spots in CBS Sports leagues, it still wouldn't explain why Woodruff is 84% rostered and Austin Hayes, who's been incredible whenever healthy, is the opposite of that, 48% rostered.
Or even Spencer Arrighetti, who has looked like a difference maker much more recently than Brandon Woodruff. Speaking of Spencer Arrighetti,
he could throw a bullpen on Tuesday and is working his way back from a fractured right thumb, only 72% rostered. The Giants option Tyler Fitzgerald back to AAA. They'll likely go with Brett Wisely and Christian Koss in the meantime. Once Matt Chapman is back, I have to imagine if Casey Schmidt is still hitting that they'll just put him at second base and see how that works out. The Reds reinstated Jeimer Candelario and then designated him for assignment. So I don't think any other team is going to claim him when there's
15 million left after this year.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's probably like $20 to $25 million left on that contract still, but he can also choose to become a free agent. And then I guess, I don't know how that contract stuff would work out. I guess maybe
sign for the minimum and whatever.
The Reds are probably still on the hook for that money anyway. So we'll see. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that maybe his career is just over, but I guess it's a possibility. And big news as the Mets signed Richard Lovelady, Chris, your guy, to
huge signing,
1-year contract. And he said that he wants to go by his nickname, Dickie, not making the story up. So now his name is Dickie Lovelady. So perfect.
Yep.
That's it. That's the whole story. Monday was not the cleanest night of pitching that we have ever seen. Let's run through some of these clunkers here. And another week, another rough one from Bailey Ober. He was facing the Mariners, 7 innings, 7 hits, 7 runs, 7 strikeouts. one of the weirdest lines that I've seen. He also allowed 3 home runs in this game, some more hard contact. It has been a June from hell here for Bailey Ober. The ERA is up to 4.90. It's a 137 whip. I know last week you guys kind of took the more rational, controlled approach here. I'm not saying you have to drop Bailey Ober, but if this is happening in a 2-start week, we cannot start him right now.
Oh, no, and I didn't recommend him among the 2-start pitchers for this week. I had him in the no thanks section of the 2-start pitcher rankings. Like he's talked and he's been really open about it, how he's messed up mechanically right now. And maybe that was sort of like what I was saying for Michael Harris before. Like maybe he doesn't figure it out this year. He probably will figure it out at some point. And I think he's good enough that you'll be happy you held on to him if he does. You don't have to hold on to him, but I mean, just to look at another example of this sort of situation, Corbin Burns last August, his mechanics became a big problem. He had a terrible month, ERA over 7, looked unusable, and then he fixes it and is awesome in September. Like that's how quickly it can turn around. We've got enough of a track record here for Bailey Ober that I think it's reasonable to hold out hope, but obviously you can't start him now.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to Shane Smith, who is also kind of going through it right now. He faced the D-backs. He allowed 5 runs over 2 innings, only threw 59% of his pitches for strikes. Struggled to throw his changeup in the zone. Everything got hit hard here. Last 6 starts for Shane Smith, it's a 5.81 ERA and a 1.52 whip. 16 walks over 26 1/3. So struggling with walks and hard contact here. 79% rostered. Do we hold on to Shane Smith? Is it maybe only in points leagues where he's a spark? What do you guys think?
I think it's mostly just in points leagues that I'd hold on to him, which means he should probably remain like 50+% rostered in CBS. It's just, I don't think there's a ton of roto upside here. I like him long-term, but he only threw like 92 innings or something last season. He has struggled a lot to sustain his velocity deep into starts. He always starts off like 96, 97, and then by the end, it's like 94, 95. And obviously, it's a terrible team. So I think he's a talented pitcher, but I certainly don't think he's a must roster.
Yeah, it's one thing to live with the short outings and the bad supporting cast when he has a 2.30 ERA, but now his ERA is up around 3.30 and trending up. And yeah, I like a lot about Shane Smith, but I can understand wanting to use that roster spot some other way at this point.
And it's weird because if you kind of dig in the individual pitches, they look impressive for Shane Smith. It's just, it hasn't really added up to a complete pitcher recently here with Shane Smith. Let's go over to Ben Brown, who got clobbered by the Cardinals. He allowed 8 runs over 5 innings, 4 homers allowed in this one, 14 hard hits. Just guy got hammered here. Has allowed 5+ earned runs in 6 different times this season, 8 earned runs twice. I understand the strikeout stuff, the whiffs are there. The underlying numbers look better, but I just think Ben Brown gives up way too much hard contact, way too many barrels to be useful for fantasy. So he's only 53% rostered, but if you picked him up recently, I think you go ahead and drop him again.
There's going to be more good outings ahead, but I agree the overall is going to be pretty lackluster.
And lastly, we have Chad Patrick, who had a mixed outing against the Pirates, 5 innings, 4 runs allowed, but did have 9 strikeouts and 14 whiffs on 99 pitches here. He's allowed 4+ earned runs in 3 straight after not allowing 4 earned runs in any of his first 13 starts. So taking a little bit of a step back here, but still did some good here. What do you guys think about Chad Patrick? He's 75% rostered.
Yeah, I think the peripherals have looked better as the ERA has corrected, if that makes sense. Like he was clearly overachieving early on, but he's now looked like a more effective pitcher as his ERA has climbed these last 3 starts. But still, overall disappointing outcome given the opponent here, the Pirates, and these last 3 that we've talked about: Chad Patrick, Ben Brown, Shane Smith. All among my 10 sleeper pitchers for this week. So just further confirmation that streaming pitchers sucks.
All right.
Let's
Well,
just keep the focus on Eduardo Rodriguez. I think that was a great call.
That was a good one.
There you go.
Although I think he was ranked behind all three of these.
We
Maybe
don't-
not Ben Brown. I think
No,
he was
no,
ahead
no,
of
no,
Brown.
You know what? Rankings are that's a whole different thing. It's just it's an honor to be nominated kind of thing,
All right, let's take our final break. When we return, we'll take a look at some quick waiver wire hitters. Matthew Liberatore pitched well. We'll do that right after this. Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today, and want to take a quick look at Matthew Liberatore. Maybe we're writing him off a little bit too soon. He was back on track, strong start against the Cubs, 7 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts, had 11 whiffs on 85 pitches here. Velocity was up a little bit for Liberatore. That's back-to-back quality starts after a rough 3-start stretch here. 3.96 ERA, 1.15 whip. I know we've been, skeptical lately, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Are we maybe writing him off too soon?
We have been skeptical lately. I think I've been especially skeptical lately. And yet he was my number 2 sleeper pitcher for this week. So that's another one that worked out. And it also exemplifies pitchers I'm skeptical end up second on my sleeper pitchers list because streaming pitcher sucks. Okay, enough with that point. Liberatore. What's weird about this is like clearly what's allowed him to make the leap this year is superlative control, the kind that seems difficult to sustain from a pitcher who doesn't have a track record of it. He threw just 61% of his pitches for strikes in this start, which is normally no bueno. But, sample of 1, weird things can happen, obviously. It's not something you'd want to see continue from Liberatore. And if it adds to the overall, like, chipping away at that seemingly unsustainable skill he's showing, then even though the outcome was good in this start, it still leaves room for trepidation, I think.
Yeah. And look, he's up to 86 in the 3rd innings. He has just surpassed last year's innings total. So I do think there will either be a slowdown period here or a shutdown or move to the bullpen or something along those lines. He'll probably be allowed to go up to maybe 130, 140, something like that. But also wonder if he can kind of maintain his effectiveness here. So good starts. I think you can use Liberatore in the right spots for now. But let's see how he maintains this as he, surpasses his innings total from last season. Couple other waiver wire hitters, mostly deep league names here. Pavin Smith has kind of had a weird season. 2 for 4 with a double dong, 4 RBI. He had that awesome April, terrible May, and now an uneven June where he has an 840 OPS, but a 190 batting average. So not really sure what to make of that. Brady House is doing some things for the Nationals, 2 for 5 with a double RBI and his 2nd stolen base. And Nick Gonzalez has been racking up hits since returning to the Pirates. He went 5 for 5 with 2 doubles and 2 RBI in 18 games since returning. It's a 319 batting average, 1 home run, 3 doubles, 2 triples, an OPS over 800. Deep league names, but do any of these matter? Pavin Smith, Brady House, and Nick Gonzalez.
Yeah, I mean, depends how deep the league is. I'd genuinely be thrilled to have all 3 in an NL only league. Anything shallower than that, I could take them or leave them based on need.
Yeah, I think Gonzalez and House are much more interesting than Smith, just because Smith is older, a bit more of a proven commodity, and that proven commodity is he hits decently well against lefty or righties, but he's not so overwhelmingly dominant that it makes up for the fact that he never plays against lefties. And actually his underlying data this year is pretty bad for a platoon guy. So I think he's probably just a low batting average guy who hits for power. Gonzalez, there is some prospect pedigree in his history. There is some stuff to like in the underlying data. I don't think it all adds up to by no means a must start or must roster player in all leagues, but he's done some interesting things so far this season. I think Brady House is more interesting, but I think both of them are okay.
Alrighty.
You do realize Pavin Smith has reached base at a 390 clip this year.
Pretty good.
He also has a 31% strikeout rate and doesn't play against lefties, though.
Well, the walks matter in points leagues, but he's not going to matter in points leagues, you know?
Yeah, he's kind of like a deeper OBP league kind of guy.
I think he's good. I don't think he's good for fantasy necessarily.
Sure. Yeah, that I could see making sense. I mean, obviously getting on base that much, and his OPS is great, but it just, he only has 8 home runs on the year. It's like I said, it's just kind of been a weird season here for Pavin Smith. Let's get into some struggling hitters, and we'll do a little SBD, start, bench, or drop. And before I get into it, I realize there are players on this list that you will never drop, but just kind of play along with me here. So I'll throw 3 names out there. You guys tell me which one you would start, which one you would bench for now, and which one you would be dropping of this trio. And we will start with some outfielders. You guys spoke about him earlier, but we have Michael Harris, Brenton Doyle, and Jung-Hoo Lee. Harris has just had a bad season all around. Brenton Doyle, he actually had a solid March/April and then has just plummeted since then. Jung-Hoo Lee has done the same thing. Since May 1st, he's hitting .206 with a .605 OPS. So whoever would like to get us started, start or drop these 3.
Okay. I have, following the parameters of the game where I have to do one of each with these players. I think this one's pretty straightforward. I would start Jung-Hoo Lee, I would bench Michael Harris, and I would drop Brenton Doyle.
Interesting.
Do you disagree?
I think it probably, I'm going to do the cop-out, might depend on format. I think Brenton Doyle just has much more upside in a Roto League than Jung-Hoo Lee. I think Michael Harris probably has higher ceiling than either of them. But it's been a long time since we've seen that ceiling, and he gets off to these really bad starts every year, and it just has taken him a little longer to pull out of them. Like in 2023, I was looking at it. It was bad April, bad May, awesome from then on. And like the underlying numbers were like that too. Last year it was bad April, bad May, bad June. I think he was hurt in that as well. And then took off from July and later. And this year, no signs that he's turning it around. And the underlying numbers are truly terrible for Michael Harris. And I was trying to come up with like a grand unified theory for like Michael Harris and Yainer Diaz and God, who was the other guy? There was another guy. I can't remember. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Ozzy Albies. Yeah, that was the other guy. I was trying to come up with a grand unified theory of like, well, these guys are all super aggressive swingers, and maybe that just doesn't work in an environment where the ball is deader. And then I remembered, Pete Crow Armstrong is the best player in baseball now. So that doesn't really make sense. He swings at 65% of pitches that he sees or whatever. Michael Harris. I think
Albies has never hit the ball hard, and we've kind of loaded that theory with him for years now, that if he was in a dead ball environment for a season where he didn't miss a ton of time with injury, it might not go so well, which I'm not ruling out a return to form for Albies either. I'm just saying it's a little more understandable in his case than in Harris's case.
The thing with Harris and Yainer Diaz is the quality of contact has generally been very good in the past. This year, the quality of contact for Michael Harris is the worst it's ever been by far. I want to believe that he'll turn it around, but like we said earlier, that is a belief that he's 24 and talented, not a belief in anything he's doing. Brenton Doyle's underlying numbers are better, actually, this year.
Yes, but they're still not that good. And like I'm least confident that Brenton Doyle's actually a good hitter, because last year was kind of the only example of that. And even then, he was a 260 hitter playing half his games at Coors Field.
Yeah. It is crazy to me that his underlying data is still better this season, and he's just been so awful. And look, maybe he just played way over his head last year, but you would expect that for someone who plays half their games in Coors Field, and it just hasn't happened for Doyle. I still think in deeper Roto leagues, I get 3 outfielder leagues, you probably drop him by now, but in deeper Roto leagues, I think I would still try and buy super low on Brenton Doyle.
I agree.
I wouldn't mind buying on him, but I'm following the rules of your game. I'm the only one you made follow the rules of the game.
All right.
You drop it, Chris.
This is more of a conversation.
I would drop
Jung-Hoo
Lee. I would drop Jung-Hoo Lee ahead of Brenton Doyle. I don't want to drop either of them. I would rather have Jung-Hoo Lee in a points league than Doyle. So depending on your format, whatever. But I do expect all three of these guys to be better moving forward than they have been so far. And I don't necessarily know if I'm going to say that for everyone here.
Well, let's talk about first base, where we have start, bench, or drop Paul Goldschmidt, Tyler Soderstrom, and Spencer Torkelson. So Goldschmidt having a very rough June. He's crushing lefties. He's subpar against right-handed pitching. Soderstrom has been pretty mediocre since May 1st on, and Torkelson is struggling big time so far in June. So start, bench, or drop these three.
I think the way because this is basically just ranking them, not to
Oh, I don't see it as
not to show the man behind the curtain.
Certainly, start and bench isn't just a ranking necessarily.
But okay. So it's Torkelson, Goldschmidt, Soderstrom for me. So
you're starting Torkelson, you're sitting
Torque, sitting Goldschmidt, cutting Tyler Soderstrom. Although again, I don't think you should drop Tyler Soderstrom.
I'm starting Soderstrom, sitting Torkelson, and dropping Paul Goldschmidt. The sitting Torkelson because I literally am sitting him in a 15-team league where I also have Max Muncy to fill that spot. And I can't say that about any league where I have Soderstrom.
Mm-hmm.
He's been really kind of bad for a while now, though. Soderstrom.
But not as bad as Torkelson's been here in June.
And the one concern, the biggest concern I have for Soderstrom, he's not likely to be a platoon player because Oakland doesn't have any reason to make him a platoon player, but he's been very bad against lefties. 504 OPS, 24 strikeouts to 3 walks, only 3 extra base hits among his 15 hits. Against righties, he looks great. It's like a 890, 860 OPS. That looks awesome. But yeah, Soderstrom might just be a part-time player who's getting rightly the opportunity to be a little more than that on a team that is doesn't really have any reason to sit him,
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to second base, where I have Ozzie Albies, Tommy Edman, and Bryson Stott as the three here. And Albies has just had a down season. It's been even worse here in June. Quality of contact has never really been good, but he's found a way to make it work. It's down even more this season. Tommy Edman got off to that great start in 30 games since returning from the IL. He's hitting 243 with a 648 OPS. And Bryson Stott, he's another one. Strong start, but pretty awful from May on here. Start, bench, or drop these three.
This is the hardest one.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not dropping Albies because he's my highest ranked, but I don't know that I'm thrilled to start him now either.
Don't know that I feel great about starting any of these three.
Yeah, I think I'd go Edman, Albies, Stott.
So starting
Edman,
Albies, drop Stott.
I think Chris is rejecting your premise here.
No, I'm just answering it I'm just answering it in that order. I just don't want to have to say every single time start, bench, drop,
But then we end up having to say it anyway because it's hard to process.
Well, try and keep up.
Yeah. Okay. SBD, start, bench, drop.
Get good.
All right. Sure. I don't want to answer.
Wow, but I'm the one who's not playing by the rules. I guess that's technically true. If you throw the board, you aren't not playing by the rules. You just aren't playing.
You gave an answer. We don't both have to chime in on everyone.
This is the first time that Ozzie Albies has been healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we've brought up this exact thing before, where I am actually questioning how good he is without the juice ball, because every other year that we didn't have a juice ball, there was an injury excuse. Yep. And this year we don't have that. And now.
Well, okay. But from my understanding, the current baseball situation with the baseball in baseball, it's not confusing at all to talk about it that way, is that last year is more the outlier. in terms of the way the ball was playing, and that 2024 is playing more like 2022 and 2023, which was, I think, the timeline around when they purchased Rawlings and like kind of standardized the production process and like actually talked about changing the baseballs and acknowledged that that's something that they were doing.
You're saying last year wasn't as pitcher friendly as this year?
Yeah, last year the ball was flying. That among the last 4 years, last year is the one that's the most different. Last year the ball was flying further than 22 or 23. And in 25 is playing more like 23 and 22. And in 2023,
Ozzie Albies had the best year of his career high, 33 homers, hit 280.
Now, my understanding could be off, but that was what I had seen in some of the discussions about it. So, yeah, I don't know. But but that's a good. But that would be the point, is that if the baseball in 2023 wasn't juiced or not juiced, but just was relatively in the middle, he still had his best season. So I absolutely share these concerns. I think I've been more skeptical on the whole of Ozzie Albies throughout his career than you guys. So yeah, it definitely could be that he's just not as good in this context.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, I don't know specifically what metric you're talking about, but I think of a straightforward way to measure this, the way I tend to use, is home run to fly ball rate. 2022, when Ozzie was bad but injured for a large chunk of the year. 2024, when Ozzie Albies was bad but injured for a large chunk of the year. And 2025, where he's been bad. Home run to fly ball rate was less than 12%.
11.3 to 11.6.
And then in 2023, the year he was great, it was 12.7%. So that is more the outlier than last year was, if we're just looking at home run to fly ball rate.
Just in a vacuum, would you guys actually try to buy Ozzie Albies right now, or has this skepticism maybe pushed you away from doing that?
Like I mentioned earlier, I'm working on a piece that's like buy low candidates, second half breakouts, whatever you want to call it. I had Albies on my list, and I did take him off. I feel less confident in that one than I do like Michael Harris or Mike Trout or Christian Walker.
And yeah, we all have him ranked 4th at second base.
Yeah,
still,
I know.
right?
I know.
I mean, part of that's just second base. It's so underwhelming, and it's like, you might as well just cross your fingers and hope Ozzie Albies turns it around.
Yeah,
I think at some point soon I'm going to have to drop him behind like the Michael Garcia types.
Yeah.
But I mean, it depends what the cost is. If you could get Ozzie Albies for pocket change, obviously you do it and hope for the best. But I'm not supremely confident he's going to bounce back from this.
Yeah. And last three at the shortstop position, we have Corey Seager, Geraldo Perdomo, and Mason Wynn. Seager just having a brutal June so far. Ground ball rate is way up. Perdomo has hit a wall. Actually, all three of these guys, they've just kind of hit a wall here in June. Start, bench, or drop. Seager, Perdomo, Mason Wynn.
I would start Seager. I wouldn't mind dropping either Perdomo or Mason Wynn, like legitimately, but I think Perdomo's a little more rosterable than Wynn. So I'll say start Seager, bench Perdomo, drop Wynn.
Start Seager for sure. He's by far the most talented. He has by far the best underlying stats. I like Mason Wynn more than Geraldo Perdomo, so I would bench Wynn and drop Perdomo.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of questions about Seager right now, and rightfully so. And he's hitting 234 with a 710 OPS, has been on the IL twice this season with a hamstring. So you do always kind of wonder, all right, is he playing through something right now? Is he completely healthy? But outside of the ground ball rate just spiking this season, the expected numbers still look really good here for Corey Seager. And I don't know, maybe we shouldn't put too much stock into that because it has kind of a weird season for expected numbers. But I mean, he's hitting the ball hard. The barrel rate is there.
Everything that feeds into the expected number. Like I just said, I'm not supremely confident Ozzie Albies will bounce back. I am supremely confident Corey Seager will bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
What are you gonna say, Chris?
his pulled air rate is a career low 10.4%. That would be the biggest reason to worry about Corey Seager, but that also mostly just suggests that he's a little off. That he's just the timing's not right for some reason.
That could be as much a symptom as a cause.
Yeah, that feels like that feels like something I bet on him figuring it out.
All right. So that was it. Start, bench, or drop. You guys like it? Was it all right?
Yeah, it's great.
All right, before we wrap up here, get into the leftovers, let's check in on 3 hitters we have not talked much about. Jackson Holliday had a huge game, 3 for 5 with his 9th homer, 4 RBI. Julio Rodriguez, his first home run since his first home run in June here, his 11th of the season. And Ketel Marte is just doing his thing, has 3+ hits in 4 of his last 5 games, hit his 14th home run, and somehow his expected stats are even better this year than they were last year when he was amazing. So anything to add on these 3? Just 3 names we haven't really talked much about, I feel like.
Keep the faith on Julio Rodriguez. Holiday at a weak position has been good enough to stick with, but I'm not necessarily counting on another big step forward this year. And then Ketel Marte is amazing. By far the best second baseman.
Mm-hmm. Holiday, I mean, quietly, 265, 9 homers, 8 steals. He's almost on pace for a 2020 season. I mean, that would be pretty nice. It's just still weird to me that he's not walking much. It's, he walked so much in the minors, and it's just a 5% walk rate for Holiday. So just
Logan O'Hoppe syndrome.
Yeah. Stands out as a little bit weird for him. Some pitching leftovers. Spencer Schwellenbach, a strong start against the Mets. 7 innings, 2 runs with 4 strikeouts, only 5 whiffs. I do wonder if that's due to just facing the same lineup 2 times in a row. They just saw him, so perhaps that contributed to the lack of whiffs. And Brian Wu turned in yet another quality start. 6 innings, 2 runs with a season-high 9 strikeouts. He has gone 6+ innings in all 15 starts this season. Anything on Wu or Schwellenbach?
It's got to be like 22 out of 23 starts going back to last August too, because that was when it turned around, when he got healthy and they let him go deeper into games. He started throwing 90+ pitches more often, and it's been a pretty long time where Brian Wu's just been excellent. There's just like that small little bit in the back of your head that's like, can he stay healthy? But he's really, really good.
Mm-hmm. All right, next up, we have some hitting leftovers. It was a big night for stud bats. Ronald Acuña, another huge game, 2 for 5 with a sock and a shoe. His first pair of the season. Home run and steal in the same game. He's up to 9 homers, 3 steals, hitting .396 so far. Juan Soto hit his 17th home run and continues his massive June, where he's got 8 home runs and an 1188 OPS. Aaron Judge added his 28th home run. Ellie De La Cruz finished a double short of the cycle, hit his 18th homer, also is having a massive June there. Christian Yelich, 2 for 3 with a walk and his 15th home run. Zach Neto just keeps on, hit his 12th home run of the season, added 3 hits. And a revenge game for Nationals hitters against the Padres. CJ Abrams, 3 for 5 with his 16th steal. And James Wood, 3 for 5 with his 22nd home run.
We made that noise at the same time. Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
Are we sure Ronald Acuña isn't just the top 3 player again?
I am not sure.
Are we sure he isn't?
He might be.
Because he didn't steal a base in his first 18 games. Then he stole 1, but it was weird. I remember it was like a double steal or a 3-2 count, something like that.
Yeah, running on a 3-2 count.
But then he's got 2 steals in the last 4 games, and they've been straight up steals.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, he's not a 70 steal guy again. What if Ronald Acuña is a 30 steal guy still?
Yeah.
It could be.
I would bet on
right now,
a 30 steal guy. Yeah.
The way he's hitting right now, okay, it's not exactly like 2023 because the strikeout rate's much higher. So he's not going to hit 337 again, but 290?
Yeah. With like a 40-30 pace?
Yeah, like that kind of feels, and Shohei Ohtani hasn't stolen a base in like a month. I don't know if you guys realize that.
I think he only has 10 or 11 on the season.
Yeah, no, he just stopped stealing about a month ago. I think it was like 27 games or something when I was looking it up today.
Probably when he started ramping up as a pitcher again, right? So,
which is something that Dave Roberts talked about before the season, that they're probably not going to have him run as much. And so
are you making the case he's a top 2 player?
I'm saying Aaron Judge is probably in a tier of his own now. And it might be a 2-man tier after him.
Like, I don't want to, I know Bobby Witt's home run pace is off. I expect that to correct. I think he has more home runs to come.
I just think Ronald Acuña is better.
Yeah, this might not be like a knock against Witt.
Yeah.
At Acuña's.
Like, I think there's nothing wrong with being the number 4 player behind those guys.
You might want to refresh yourself on the numbers Bobby would actually put up last year.
Oh, they were awesome.
32
homers, 31 steals.
31.
But he's also not hitting 332 anymore either.
Well, yet.
I would say batting average is probably close to a wash between him and Acuña. I would think Acuña has more power. I think Acuña, I don't think the steals are an edge for Bobby Witt. I think that's probably a push. And so at that point,
I would give Witt more steals.
Yeah, I would give him 50% more steals.
Okay, yeah, I guess he is on a 40 steal pace this year. I didn't realize he had picked it up lately.
So I think there's a clear top 4 in fantasy is my stance. Judge, and I'd still put Judge and Ohtani. I'd call them 1A, 1 and 1A, and then I'd call.
I actually think Judge is just
Acuña.
Yeah.
Then I'd call Acuña and Witt in some order 3 and 3A.
1C and 2A.
Okay.
All right.
Just to confuse it,
Yeah.
Call to the bullpen here. 2 updates for the Braves. Raisel Iglesias got the 8th inning with a 1-run lead, and he got the first 2 outs, then allowed back-to-back singles. He was relieved by Dylan Lee, who struck out Juan Soto with first and third 1-run game. I mean, does not get higher leverage than that. Dylan Lee came out for the 9th inning, and then he retired all 3 that he faced there as well for his second save of the season. 10% rostered. We all think Iglesias will get it back at some point, but this was a pretty impressive outing for Dylan Lee. And for the Pirates, David Bednar got the 9th inning with a 1-run lead. He allowed 2 base runners, but picked up his 11th save.
I could be wrong, but I think this is the first save by a Braves pitcher since May 16th.
Yep. 31 game.
It is wild.
Saveless streak, a franchise record.
Wow.
But I was going to point out Dylan Lee's numbers. He's got a 1.77 ERA, 0.81 WHIP, 9.3 K per 9. That's for the season. That's not like over a 25 appearance stretch or anything. So maybe he's just worthy of being the closer. I still think Raisel Iglesias is going to get a shot here, and as long as he's looking okay in the lower leverage situations, which he has so far, because the second best lefty in that bullpen is Aaron Bummer, and they don't seem to trust him in leverage situations at all. So I think they prefer to keep Lee flexible once they've regained trust in Iglesias, but it's not a sure thing. It's not a sure thing at all.
Yeah. Dylan Lee's numbers are nasty, man. My goodness. Swinging strike rate is very good. He limits hard contact. Velocity is up this season on all of his pitches. Yeah, I don't know if Raisel Iglesias is getting that job back. We'll see. To stream or not to stream for Tuesday, and the 3 that stood out to me here were Charlie Morton against the Rangers, Ryan Nelson at the White Sox, and Justin Verlander against the Marlins.
I think those are the right 3. If you're asking me to start one and only one, I would pick Verlander.
I have Ryan Nelson significantly below those other 2.
I don't think he's that great, but it's just at the White Sox.
Yeah, I mean that's the main appeal there, so that's fine. But I don't want to be on the record as saying I want to start him.
All right. A lot of cop-out answers today. I don't know. We're going to have a producer meeting before our next podcast. On Wednesday, what do we have here? Brady Singer against the Yankees. Jacob Lopez at the Tigers. Max Scherzer is at the Guardians for his Blue Jays debut. And Edward Cabrera at the Giants.
Ew. I could get excited about Jacob Lopez. I am excited about him in a general sense, but I don't trust him yet, and he's going against one of the league's better offenses at the Tigers here. So he's my choice by default, but I'd still rather not.
I really like what Edward Cabrera is doing lately. The Marlins have had no trust with him. They have pulled him with below 90 pitches like multiple times lately.
He did have
the numbers.
First quality start of the season last time out.
Yeah, and the numbers since the start of May are actually really good. It's like a 2.50 ERA or something. Scherzer, I don't want to trust in his first game back, but I'm very interested to see what it looks like. And then look, if you've got to start a guy with a 17% fly ball rate or a 17% ground ball rate or whatever it is for Jacob Lopez, Comerica Park's not the worst park to do it in. I think he's interesting. I think the ugly starts are going to be really ugly for Jacob Lopez just because of how many balls he gives up in the air.
Yeah, it is scarier to try that in Sacramento where seemingly the balls was flying. But maybe at Detroit you can get away with that. Yeah, I would go with I actually am okay with Scherzer. I mean, he threw like 70 pitches last time out, and Guardians offense is pretty terrible. So any of Lopez, Scherzer, and Cabrera, I think are okay on Tuesday. Let's wrap up. That's Wednesday, actually. Let's wrap up with Team Name Tuesday. We didn't do it last week, so whatever. We're going to run long here, but let's get to them.
For this. All right, go ahead.
Jake in KC, Cage D. Eflinant.
Yeah.
And then some cartoon movie-themed ones. Cruelly de Villa Cruz.
Yep.
Okay, Camilo Duvall. There's got to be something to do with that name over Ellie De La Cruz if you're going to do a Cruella de Vil thing.
So this one is very Heath Cummings. So I appreciate that energy being brought to the podcast.
Scott White and the Seven Sparps.
Yeah.
My dad used to joke that they planned to name my sister Snow.
I've got a friend whose last name is Matos, and he always said he was going to name his son Tom.
Oh, got it. It took like a couple of seconds to process. Next one is Choi Story.
I used to say I was going to name my son Dwight.
Is this a Aesop Choi? Am I forgetting a more recent Choi?
G-Man Choi.
Okay. All right. Yeah. It'd be more fun if it was Aesop Choi.
Ryan King. It can be if you want it to be.
Yep, Ryan King. Okay.
And Aladdin 2, Return of Gerard.
This might have been sent before he got sent down to AAA or whatever. Did he get sent down to AAA?
Maybe he's planning for the return of Gerard.
Or it's the return to AAA.
Yeah.
From Bill, these are Beach Boy themed. Wouldn't it be Bryce?
Yep.
Don't worry, Bybee.
Yep.
Barbara Anthony Volpe.
Yeah.
Wood Vibrations.
Yep.
Help Me Aranda.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Heroes and Villains.
Yeah. No, these are all solid. Rest in peace, Brian Wilson.
These are from Matt. Amicable Devers.
Yeah.
Divorce. It's like supposed to be divorce, but it's
yeah.
Devers with an E on the end there. So
I did go with Deverance for one of my teams. Like the TV show that
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Or just a word.
You say low, I say low.
Yeah.
Ms. Urowski loves company. That's pretty good. And from a different Matt. Nobody puts Beatty in a corner.
Yeah, that's good.
Junis National Safety Month.
That's excellent. That's really good.
McStay and your McLean.
That's good. That's fine.
And this one's fun. Whoa, Framber is the color of your energy. Boom. All right. We're going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.